I'm going to walk you through quick basic operation of the pressure washers that we use for exterior houses, cement, decks, stuff like that. This is the pressure washing station we have set up, chemicals, chemical buckets that we have all our containers in, our direct battery spray pump, our high pressure hoses, our garden hoses, and our triggers, our lances, and our guns. And then we also have an assortment of parts here as well. They have to bring this with them. It's going to have backup supplies, tips, and quick connects. So these are the gas cans that we use. We have 3 of these pressure washers. You really only need to load these up in the truck for that specific job. You don't necessarily need to keep it in the truck for any duration of time. So on the pressure washer, I'll start from the front and back here. Right here is the downstream injector. This is the high pressure line, so this is what goes out to the gun that gives us high pressure water. This is the inlet for the garden hose. This piece right here is a quick connect, so this will actually be attached to your hose, your garden hose at all times, so you can just slip it on real quick, and then the other end you would plug into the homeowner's spigot. So then here we have the pump, and this is the pump oil indicator. We always want to keep that right at the red line. We don't want to overflow it or underflow it. And I'll go over in a different video about how to change pump oil. Here's our gas container. This has a filter there. Here's our on-off switch. Coming around the side here. We have our pull to get it started. We have the choke lever right here. So it'd be choked all the way, and then as you get it warmed up, you'd press it all the way forward. And then we have our shut off for gas right here. So that would be shut off, and that would be all the way full. So now what I'm going to do is get it started. So you're always going to want to use the garden hose that's in the truck. The garden hose is available here. The reason why is a lot of people will have these flexible hoses, and a lot of times they'll break because they're not made for pressure washer use. So we'll just go ahead and get this attached here. And we will get a pressure line hooked up to it. These pressure hoses they come in 2 50-foot increments. That's how I usually order them. And then they're just bunched together because you don't necessarily all the time need to use 100 feet. So you can just quick connect them, which is usually what we do for a deck. We use 100 feet. So I'm going to take this in here, and this is a female quick connect, and this is a male 3/8 inch. All of the connectors going from the pressure washer to the gun are 3/8 inch. So right here with a downstream injector, this can actually be pulled off. This is the factory made injector. It doesn't pull as much chemical as the injector that we've ordered. So we have this set up for a quick connect where we can replace this easily if we have to. So this is a female to a male into the pressure washer, and this is the high pressure line. Now I'm going to take a gun. And I have a female on the end of the gun. Then I'm going to connect that to the hose. And now I can get the garden hose going. get water run into the pressure washer, and you always want to have water going into the pressure washer before you start it, so that it makes sure that it doesn't cavitate the pump and do damage to the pump. So I'll go ahead and get the water started. Okay, so I'm going to just show you how I put gas in before I get this started. On these tips, and then you just, to get this gas going, you just have to, so it doesn't pour until you press this trigger down. Just go ahead and put that in there. I'm just doing this as a test, so that's about all the gas I need. To fill this tank up, you just have to take this off right here at the black. Unscrew it, fill up the gas station. Back down here. I'd already started the garden hose, so I'm going to get the water coming through here. On this gun, it does have a safety area right here, so you just have to make sure that that's up. We got water coming through. We got it flowing through the pressure washer. So now I'm going to get it started. So I'm going to make sure that this on switch is on. And it may be cold, but I'm going to try it first, assuming that it's warm enough. So I'm going to have it not choked at all and in the forward position on. So both of these are forward. And then you want to hold the trigger on the gun down because you don't want it to build up pressure while you're cranking it. Otherwise it'll just stop. You want to have the pressure released. So now I'll go ahead and crank it. A little bit because it didn't start, so I'm going to pull this back.
So we had the audio cut out on us here, but basically I'm pulling the lever into the choke position all the way to the left to get it started. Once it kind of warms up for 10 seconds or so, then I'm going to push that lever all the way forward. And it usually only takes, 15-20 seconds for it to get warmed up and started. So I'm just kind of playing with it here, just getting the pressure, the water running through. Sometimes you get air pockets that come through. You just want to get all those through. And then here I'm just turning the machine off.
Now we're shut off. Now there's pressure still built up inside of here because I didn't have the trigger pulled as it was shut off. And you're not going to be able to pull any of your quick connects off because there's pressure built up. There's no way I can pull that off. The only way I'm going to get that off is if I release the pressure and I also turn off the garden hose. Well, you're still going to have water in your lines, but you're going to be able to release the quick connects. Helps on a lot of these to be able to push in so it'll release and then you can pull it out. Now, one of the common things that can happen with this pressure washer is the oil shut off will kick in. The oil shut off indicator is if it's low, or sometimes if it's not, if it's on a hill sitting sideways, you'll kind of sit in a reservoir and kick in that indicator, which will shut it off. So you want to make sure that as you're operating the pressure washer, you keep it on a level surface. You also want to make sure that you change out the oils, the pump oil and the engine oil about every month or two. We want to do it a couple times in the summer to make sure that the machine's running properly. And I'll go over how to change the oils out in another video. So that's the basic operation of how to use a pressure washer. Okay, so now I want to walk through spray tips and what the different uses are, why you would change it. Your main spray tips that you're going to use for washing, that's actually when the gun is under pressure are these tips, minus this. We keep this on here installed, but we don't use this for a soap tip. These tips by category are going to be your 40-degree tip, your 25-degree, your 15-degree, and your 0-degree. So that just means that basically a 40-degree fan width, 25, 15, 0-degree is basically just a line. We also use a J-rod tip with mag nozzles for our soap and also for our rinse tips. So on here we have a 2530, a 0030, a 2510, and a 000, I believe. So these two The 10 is basically describing the orifice size on the mag tip. The 10 meaning a smaller tip, so it's going to have too high a pressure to pull chemical, to downstream chemical. So these two are both used for rinsing, and these two are used for downstreaming chemical, pulling chemical up and applying soap or sodium hydroxide, stripping solution, a brightening solution. You can apply it either at heights from 30 to 40 feet or something more close up at a 25-degree angle. So this is what's going to be used most of the time when you're applying chemical with a downstream injector, and this is what's going to be used when you're actually using the pressure washer under pressure to clean something. We probably use the white tip 90% of the time when we're under pressure to clean. The other times that we're going to be, say we're pressure washing a deck that's got a lot of solid stain on it, or a house with a lot of flaking paint, we're going to use what's called turbo nozzle. The turbo nozzle is basically a 0-degree tip, but it rotates inside that head, so it's never staying in one place for too long, and it agitates paint really well. It can also very easily destroy wood if you're too close to the surface. So it just takes some skill and some practice on how to use it at a distance. To get the tips changed out, you basically just pull down on this quick connect. Pull that out. You could put in your so you're going to put your soap tip in. Do it like that. We also have the ability to this would be the turbo nozzle. We also have the ability to just take the lance off if you need it shortened. A lot of times we will do this when we're up on a ladder because it's not really safe to have that extension pulled out if you're on a ladder trying to pressure wash, so you want to have it just right in your gun so you can keep a hand on a ladder rung. You just pull the lance off and then you can connect direct to the gun, just like that. And that'll work with any of these tips as well. So these are the main tips that you're going to be using. They're going to be located inside your kit. It's going to have all your backup quick connects, backup injectors if you need, pipe tape, stuff like that will be all located inside this kit. So now I'm going to get some soap in the bucket, and we're going to try to do an example of what it's like to downstream chemical. We're going to be downstreaming things like house wash. We're cleaning the house before we're painting it. We're going to be downstreaming sodium hydroxide stripper. We're also going to be downstreaming brightener. So some of these chemicals are located up here. We have Restore Deck brightener that we use a lot, the stripper that we use a lot. The HD80 stripper that we use can't be downstream. That one has to be applied direct with a battery pump. And that's located right there, which I'll go over later. So we have some soap mixed up in here. Hopefully you'll be able to see it as it's pumped through. But I'm going to get water going to the machine, get it started. I'm going to be using the 25-30 tip for applying the soap. Sometimes when you get this set up, this injector right here can get clogged. There's a little bulb inside of this, and that bulb can get filled with gunk, or the brighteners that we use and the soaps that we use get sticky when they're dry, and it can clog that injector. So it's best when you're done to clean out the injector with clean water to make sure that it's always operational. If it does get clogged, I don't go through that. You can pull this nipple off and replace the bulb, but I don't do that. I just replace. We have backup injectors, or we just have to screw these on, and I'll go over that at a later time in another video on how to replace an injector. But if it's obvious that chemical isn't getting pulled, that's usually the cause. So I'll get this started. I'm going to pull the trigger down, make sure that I can start the machine. And usually even when you're pulled like this, it's gonna start pulling chemical a little bit. Yeah, so you can see right here, we have blue in the line from the soap. You can see it starting to pull the chemical out of the bucket here. It's not gonna pull that much until I get it started. Pull the choke on the machine a little bit. Turn it off? Oh, okay. So we have chemical coming out here. Now, as soon as I switch over to a high pressure tip, actually, yeah, I'm going to switch over to a high pressure tip here and show you how chemical is no longer going to get pulled. Now, you look over at the line here. You can see that it's not quite this. It's not quite pulling chemical up because I have the high pressure tip on. I'm gonna get started here. So what happens there is it's called the Venturi effect, and it needs low pressure to be able to suck chemical out of that container. Remember too that you have about 100 feet of line out, and usually it'll take a little bit for that chemical to get all the way from your machine up to the tip of your gun. So it usually takes 15 to 20 seconds. If you're sitting right by the machine in the chemical, you should be able to see it pulling out of the tube. If it's not, then you may have an issue with the injector. So I'm done here now. I would take this out and I would put clean water in here. I would put the chemical injector on to make sure that clean water is run through the machine right here to make sure that this stays nice and clean. So that's a basic operation of how to use a downstreamer. Now I'm going to show real quick how to get everything packed up. The pressure is already out of the gun, out of the line. I'm going to turn the garden hose off here. I just empty some of this water out. That's good enough. And I will disconnect the hose line. I was going to do a little bit of water there. I'm going to connect the gun to the lance for storage in the vehicle. Come back up here. And then this pressure line is usually going to be extended all the way, and you'll have to get it warmed up. Now, this line isn't easily warmed up like an electrical hose. It has metal inside of it, and it makes it a little bit more difficult to warm up. And then I'll just take the one end, and I'm going to curl it in my hand right here, and then I'm going to take it like this, and I'm going to turn my wrist over like this. It's going to do that naturally on its own. You don't want to fight it. So you're constantly taking your wrist and just turning it 180 degrees. And then when we put it back together, when we put it in the truck or back in the shop, we put everything back together with these Velcro straps. And let's say we're done, we don't have to pressure wash anymore. And make sure we get all this stuff hung back up for the next person that needs to use it. Same process with the garden hose. Get it wrapped up and put it back on this shelf when you're done using it. You get the pressure washer put back in. So that's it.